In the last few sessions, we've looked at pointers and how they can be used with our primitive and aggregate data types. Now we're going to look at them and how we can use them with functions. In the last unit, we took a look at typedef and how we could use that to generate our own customizable data types. And that's sort of what we're going to do when we're working with pointers to functions. But sometimes it's really important for us to understand what's going on. And if you're looking at code when people are using pointers to functions, you might see a typedef that looks something like this. So let's take a closer look and see how we can figure out what these mean. In order to do that, we have to understand the symbols and operators that are used, because they're going to help us figure out what's going on. So here we can see we have some round brackets, and we know that that represents possibly two things. One, it might be defining the order of operations, because we know in arithmetic something that's in brackets is going to get dealt with earlier than something that's not in brackets. Then we have an asterisk, and we know that that might be multiplication. We also know that it might be an indirection operator used for pointers. Here we have open and close round brackets together, and that usually means that there's a function involved. And then we've got square brackets, and we know that means an array. So here we've got the possibility of using pointers, the possibility of functions, the possibility of arrays. So what does this typedef mean when we've got all that stuff together? In order to be able to figure out how a typedef statement like that works, we have to go to our order of operations table. And you're always going to find this in the front cover or the back cover or very close to in any textbook. You can also find this online. But it's very important that you have one available to you when you're doing this kind of thing. So we had three sets of operators there. We had brackets, both round and square, and we had the dereferencing operator, or the indirection operator. So if we look at this, we can see that our round brackets and square brackets are at the same level, and they get evaluated left to right. So if we encounter some round brackets on the left-hand side of one of those typedef statements, we're going to look at those first. So we're going to do those in order, left to right. The dereferencing is lower than that. They go right to left, so we're going to handle brackets first and then our dereferencing operator. So let's look at that typedef statement we had. If we look at it, we've got brackets which are at the top level. So we've got some round brackets here, we've got round brackets here, we've got square brackets. So those are up on the top level of that order of operations. And then our dereferencing operator, our indirection operator, was at the second level. So we're going to start with the brackets. So the red brackets would be the ones I would deal with first, because remember the brackets were left to right. So that first bracket indicates I need to take a look at what's inside it. It's not a function. So here, this is just like a mathematical bracket. So we go inside. What's inside those brackets? Well, the brackets take precedence over the other operator. So the second thing I'm going to look at is this open and close bracket, which indicate I have a function. The next thing, because I need to do the red brackets first, is going to be this indirection operator, which says because it's on the left-hand side of a name, it's going to return a pointer. That means I've done everything inside my red brackets. Now I'm going to come outside, and I've got my array brackets. We know that means an array. We know it means 4 elements. So I'm going to have an array of 4 somethings. And finally, I'm going to have integers. So if I read this now, I'm going to have, the first thing inside my bracket was a function that returns a pointer to an array with 4 integers. So we can see that down here. We have a function that returns a pointer to an array of 4 integers. So let's take a look at a few examples. So before we do that though, let's write down, just as a reminder to ourselves, what that order of operations are. So we have our round brackets and our square brackets on the top level, and then we had our dereferencing operator next. So let's take a look at the first one. So do we have any brackets? Yes, we do. We've got some square brackets here. And we have a dereferencing operator. So which are we going to do first? We're going to do the array. So here, what we're going to have is an array of 5 pointers to characters. Now let's look at the second one. Here we have round brackets, we have square brackets, and we have a dereferencing operator. So we have all three in this one. So the first one we encounter are the round brackets, and they're not indicating a function here, they're indicating order. So we're going to do what's inside the brackets first. So what we have here is a pointer to an array of 5 characters. So we have a pointer to an array of 5 characters. Now let's look at the third one. Here we have a dereferencing operator and some round brackets, which in this case are going to indicate that we have a function. So what order? Well, our brackets take precedence over the dereferencing operator, so we're going to start over here this time. So here we have a function that returns a pointer to a character. So we have a function that returns a pointer to a character. Now in the next one, we have a set of round brackets here. We have a set of round brackets here. One of them is, the first is indicating order, the second is indicating a function, and then we have a dereferencing operator as well. So let's be careful about the order here. We're going to do this set of brackets first. So we're going to go inside there, and then the function will come a bit later. So we have a pointer to a function that expects an integer and returns a character. So we have a pointer to a function that expects an integer input and returns a character. And finally, in the last one, we have them all. So we have round brackets defining order. Inside there we have a dereferencing operator or indirection operator. We have an array, and then we have an indication of a function over here. So again, we're going to be pretty careful with our order here. We're going to start with our brackets that say we have, now inside there we have both a star and an array indicators. Which comes first? The array. So we're going to have an array of 10 pointers to a function that expects an integer input and returns a character. So we have an array of pointers to a function with integer input and character output. How big is that function, or how big is that array? It's an array of 10 pointers. So we could make that note in there. So if this stuff is so involved, why would we ever want to use it? Well, one of the reasons is to be able to set up selection systems that are very tightly written, very nice, precise code. And some of the applications that we're going to take a look at are for choosing between different menu options and for processing instructions.